You seem bothered by something.
How did we get here?
A CDMP TV and film presentation from Crazy D, the mind who brings you the Black Ice Chronicles, the Females DVD, and Situations DVD, brings you The Shifter. It's Halloween night at Crazy D's, and a pesky vamp is out for blood. Beware of the Shifter.
That's it. You gotta go beat it damn scram, man. Damn.
Why don't you be a doll and find me a place to change? I need a place to change my clothes before I go.
What? Don't try to hold me on the phone.
Dee! You been holding out on me?
No, I was just about to stop and help. You know I helped the crackheads, D.
Some people just don't have originality with their outfits.
It's like I hear voices in my head talking to me and shit.
I saw that punk ass Charles Pippen and his cousin leaving here.
I learned the grace pose. Get your camera ready.
We're here, like we said, for trick or treat.
Crazy, what did you see? You seem bothered by something.
You see that shit?
Yeah, that crazy fuck in there. I don't know what the fuck that was for.
Right. She can't stand that shit.
Well, who's the pet bitch?
Like, I
What the fuck was she mean? Oh, I told her to scratch that, poke that bitch eye.
Beware of the Shifter. Be at the premiere if you dare.
Are you gonna listen to the move?
I've been out the loop since '09. Yeah, I'll be back to get at that, though.
Check this. I'm at the motherfucking house last night. Guess what the fuck I see?
What you see?
Shamika, what's up?
Fuck you think you fucking with? It's Maxwell, bitch.
Fuck you in them shoes.
Bitch, I'm about to stalk you with these shoes.
I thought I told you to get a jump to Crazy D.
I did give it to Crazy D. You know, D, you must have seen money in that. You know, he used to produce those nudie DVDs.
Fuck you, thin man. I know you did it.
Don't let your mouth write a check, cause I will take it out on your ass. Damn, man. You serious?
I don't appreciate being roughed up by men. Or should I say, male bitches.
Yeah, we gonna work out.
And we look for young ladies like you to host them.
I look like somebody that can host your videos.
That's right. So go change, cause we ain't got all day.
Get off for her.
Really good, though. I'm doing that bullshit.
The Film Review, movies, music, culture, politics, society podcast, interviews, movie reviews, and more. Live Sundays at 5:30 p.m. on the Film Review Live channel. Subscribe.
Hi, this is Bernadette Stannis, Thelma from Good Times, and you're watching the Film Review.
You know what? They are not hearing us. We went through all that, and there was no sound. Unbelievable.
Do we
people.
have sound now?
We have sound now. Listen, people. Welcome to TFR Podcast Live. Right. TFR Podcast Live. Episode 131. Right. You know, I was working on the system, so it's definitely my fault on that.
They missed us talking about this box.
Yeah, they missed us talking about the box and everything. And I'm trying to see. There we go. There's the sound that we need. Okay, people. So welcome to the Film Review Live channel. We are the husband and wife team. I'm Crazy Dee.
Tracey.
And we review movies, music, culture, politics, society. And this is episode 131. Wow. Well, let's get started, people. We're gonna on the replay. That's gonna be taken care of. So no worries about that. All right, people. So let's get started with some of the memes here. All right. So the first meme. Did you know that the whistleblower, the ICE whistleblower, is a black woman, Dawn Wooten, LPN. See, what was happening was over in the ICE detention centers, they were, how could I say, they were sterilizing the women over there at the, in the camps, right? So they were sterilizing them in the camps, and the detainees, and she blew the whistle, and now she's a pariah, and she's put her whole LPN on the line, etc., etc.
Okay.
So my question is, you know, well, my question always is, would they have done it for you? And if they did it for you, right? What? They did it for you. If they did it for you, right? Are they going to really do it for you? Would they really do it for you? What do you think? Would they really do it for you?
I'm thinking that she wasn't. I'm surprised that, because I know in other organizations, most women will band together, can I say, right? So why was she the only one? Because I'm sure she wasn't the only one that worked in the ICE facility. Like, what about all of the other women? Why was she the only one speaking out? Like, where were the, you know, the Latino women, the Caucasian women, the Asian women, the rest of the black women? Like, why was she just a lone person speaking out on this?
Well, I think she put her
seemed like more people should have came out.
Her livelihood on the line for groups of people who wouldn't do it if it was in the reverse. That's what I think. I think that they wouldn't have done it if it was in the reverse, because traditionally they don't step up to help American blacks in anything, right? So I wouldn't have stuck my neck out, and then everybody else, you know, they still got their work, they still got their job. I think that it's a case of some American blacks thinking that they are immigrants for some reason.
Well, maybe she is.
I never thought of that. Maybe she is an immigrant and not an American black.
Right.
You know, so let's move on. So the next piece is a meme where the person says, has anyone told the Ruth K and A Forever people that RBG talked bad about Colin Kaepernick's protest and had to apologize after being slammed about it? I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg on Kaepernick protest. I think it's dumb and disrespectful. Well, you know, people already know my thoughts on Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
I'd already said that, as far as I was concerned, she appeared to me to be anti-American black, especially with the last decision with Byron Allen, last couple of decisions.
Right.
Her and Obama's choice. What was her name? The Hispanic woman. Forget it. It's no need to know her name. But their choices and their decision making has been anti-black, because she was for the woman.
Right.
And we know woman suffrage.
Right.
There was always a battle.
Right.
In woman suffrage between black people, black women, and white women. So, you know.
Yeah, because during the women's suffrage movement, during that parade, they made the
blacks
women walk.
AKAs said
the Deltas.
The AKA said no. Some AKAs broke away, formed the Deltas, and walked in the parade. So they walked in the back.
In the back, right? Because the AKAs said that they weren't going to walk.
They weren't going to do that.
Behind.
They wanted to be in the main parade, right? All right, people. I don't think many of you realize it yet, but November, January is going to be one of the most dangerous times that any of us have ever experienced in our lifetimes in the United States. Brace yourself. I'm trying to figure out who wrote this. Was it a Democrat operative that wrote this?
It's going to be one of the most dangerous times.
You know.
I mean, it's just been so much on social media, on the news. It's just
been so much. Yeah. Which then gets into another meaning that kind of followed that logic, which is what happens to black folk if Trump wins again. Right? Saw that. What happens to black folks if Trump wins again? And so I was looking at that meme, and then I said, the flags flying in the back are quite questionable to me.
Right.
They're questionable because those are not
American
black flags.
Right.
Right?
Right.
That's not American black flag. So, this came from Essence. Essence magazine. This was a meme from Essence magazine. And I was like, well, what blacks are they talking about, and what blacks are they referring to when they ask that question? Because those flags that are flying are not the American black flag. Those look like some other flags. They look like African flags. African immigrant flags. And so are they saying that, now it's going to come home and hit them of what they have been warned about for so long? So I'm just trying to figure it out. So anyway, look. Chris Rock came out.
Right.
Chris Rock, coronavirus.
While you're doing that, talking about that, I'm looking up something really quick.
I'm trying to see it because it's so small. That's why I'm saying that. Coronavirus, let me bring it up bigger so I can see it. Coronavirus smacked U.S. because Pelosi and the Democrats obsessed over impeachment of Donald Trump. What do you think about that? I think that that's so. I think that that's a actual true statement indeed, that it did come across. Everyone has blame in the situation, not just one. Now, people, we often talk about what Biden.
Excuse me, the owner of Essence is also an immigrant. So.
Oh yeah, what's his name or her name?
Okay, so Rich Lou Dennis, and also Rich Lou Dennis. He owned and still owns Shea Moisture, right? So he purchased Essence magazine, Richard Lou Dennis, and
Okay, so...
So it says he and his mother, they were part of the Liberian diaspora to the United States.
Oh, Liberia.
The company was inspired by Dennis' Sierra Leone grandmother.
Oh, okay. I see now. Let's see what's everyone. Let's look to everyone listening to us on Facebook. I heard say the judge let pedophiles get away. What the hell happened to American blacks if he doesn't? Good observation on the flags. I think so too, she says. So look, people. Let's go through here. Here's another one that was interesting. We often talk about Biden and Harris and the platform that they're doing. Well, on here, we pick up on another point that they're talking about. It says opportunity for minority-owned small businesses. Okay. Who are the minorities that they're talking about? Increased funding for the Minority Business Development Agency budget, MBDA, plays a critical role in supporting the development of minority-owned businesses around the country, as well as providing needed assistance to the federal and state agencies so that they are awarded minority-owned businesses. Procedures.
I'm going to the website.
Boy, I can't read it because it's so small. But the main point is, who are the minorities, people? Who are the minorities in this tale that they're telling? Because I have a feeling.
Okay, so this is the Joe Biden.
Yeah, but I got that from off of a meme.
Oh,
right?
Okay. Oh, okay.
So exactly where that comes from, it has to do with the minority investment. I've seen all of that on his site, but to know exactly where that came from, I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly. But I got it from off of a meme, and the person was underlining it. He kept saying minority, never American black, never black, American black. I wonder what would happen if black people in America started operating on the law of vendetta. What if they start operating in the law of vendetta? What would happen? That's interesting. That's, just some memes to start out, right? This right here. Sudan ends 30 years of Islamic rule. Okay. Keep moving. That's good for the Sudan. Alright. Next meme. This one is interesting, people. So for all those that have your Bibles around, this is very important. This is a very important piece right here. Right? And so let's put this across real quick. The Bible has 67 books. Subtract your age from it and add 1953, you'll get your birth year. Again, the Bible has 67 books. Subtract your age from it and add 1953, you'll get your birth year. Does that work, people? Does that work? Get your calculators out and do the simple experiment.
It works, huh?
Simple mathematical experiment. Well, I don't know if it works for everybody. It worked for us, but I don't know if it's going to work for everybody, right? So, people, what is the situation? We're at 213-943-3358. Let's see. Does it go too far with the depictions of violence? We're talking about Nurse Ratched tonight. Does it go too far with the depictions of violence, or is it tame compared to FX's American Horror Stories? TFR takes a look at Netflix Fatal Affair. How does it fare up against Fatal Attraction and the countless other obsession films? Then the husband and wife team take a look at some classic films: Laura, Anatomy of a Murder, The Sand Pebbles, and one more film. And they Are they worth watching still today, or are they outdated? What do they say about society, the culture, and politics then? Crazy Dee and Tracey discussed Trump's Patriotic Education Commission 1776 versus the 1916 project, plus the blurbs of the week. We just finished those and various memes. So let's get started. What do we want to start with first? Let's see.
Okay, so I get upset every time I go to this Biden-Harris site, because once you read the stuff, it's just unbelievable.
Insane,
so let me sit
right?
this down.
Yeah, okay, people. So let's start with a classic that has to do with, because at the film review, we deal with movies that have to do with what's going on in the society. So right here, The Sand Pebbles is a film that was produced in 1965 and released in the summer of 1966, starring Steve McQueen. The Sand Pebbles. What does it say about society then, and what does it say about what's going on today? Is there still residue from that time today? The Sand Pebbles, adapted from a 1962 novel by author Richard McKenna, right?
Right.
Details a Yangtze River gunboat left over from the Spanish-American War, designated to protect American interests during the nationalist expansion of 1925 to 1927. So let's go back a little bit, right? The White Army, the backstory, headed by Chiang Kai-shek, KMT, Kuomintang is the name of the organization that he was involved with, opposed the Bolsheviks, right? Now, the Bolsheviks was a communist movement in Russia, right? But there were Chinese who called themselves the Bolsheviks. They studied at university in Moscow, and they were called the 28 Bolshevik students. They brought back the philosophies of communism to China. So let's read on. A Chinese group of students who studied at Moscow Sun Yat-sen University, who were communists and against. In 1927, a year after the film is based, Chiang carried out a purge of thousands of communists and dissidents. His quote was, "I'd rather kill 1,000 innocents than to allow one communist to escape," right? But what's funny about when he said he would allow only he wouldn't want one communist to escape, that he would kill him up. He killed up communists, quote unquote, that looked like him, but allowed Caucasian ones to escape. Does that sound familiar, people? Does that sound familiar, like how some people will go against their own, but let other people live who espouse the same things?
Yeah.
Let's go back even further. Between 1913 and 1928, Russia went through a turmoil. In 1917, involvement in World War I ended with the Volkovich Revolution. Later would influence the Chinese Revolution of 1927, which ensued a 22-year war in China that would see the rise of the government of the People's Republic of China after the defeat of Chiang's White Army by the Chinese Communist Red Army. This is the backdrop, which leads to the fictional telling of a fictional ship called the Sand Pebble, whose crew members are affectionately called the Sand Pebbles. That's the history first. The telling of the story set in an ensemble cast aboard a ship as China is on a tipping point while telling America's limited military involvement other than providing weapons to the nationalists, right? Is an informing past history which instructs us today. The history then instructs us today because you'll see where an army will go to no end, a government will go to no end to keep the status quo. Take, for instance, what happened in Tiananmen Square, right? Let me bring this up. In Tiananmen Square, back in 1989. See, all of this is residual. When you see people still talking about the same things, the United States government, they're going at China right now. When you see them going and talking the same things still, you'll find that nothing has really changed. It's just bubbling under, and it's residuals from what was happening back then so long ago. So check this out. This is from Tiananmen Square, 1989. This was my summer before going to senior year, to graduation. Do you remember this, people? Remember the tanks rolled down the Tiananmen Square? Remember the students were looking to be free from communism. They wanted a democratic government, right? And as this was happening, remember the guy, he stood in front of the tank, right? Now, in between June 4th, 1989 and June 5th, 1989, the Communist Army came in and indiscriminately started shooting at the students, and it was considered a massacre, right? Because the communists started from students. So you have to understand the history. The Communist Party, the current Communist Party that is there now, that's in leadership, started from a student revolution. So they understand that from the youth, things can move. So as you see, this guy gets up on the tank, and you can hear in the background, we have it down low for the reasons, for copyright reasons, but you can hear the people clapping and yelling in the back, the students. But it would be just a few before the Communist Army came in and indiscriminately bowed these kids down. And guess what? The communist government still exists today in China. Nothing has really switched or changed from this heroics that this person was doing. See that? See there? We hear gunfire. You hear the gunfire, and he's moving off because they're getting ready to shoot. Right, so they're getting ready to shoot.
He saw how serious.
So they saw how serious, because when it comes down to it, they understand that they can be taken over by students because it was a student movement that started. So understanding history from the past informs you today about what could possibly happen. Right.
Right.
America was on the, oh man, I cannot read my, right? So America was neutral, really, other than to help the nationalist side that was defeated by the communists, and that's what brings about the dislike or the displeasure of the communists, the People's Republic of China, because the communists defeated their ally, which was the nationalist government, right? Roosevelt, Churchill, interesting history, Japan, etc. Japan was also involved. Second, Steve McQueen as motor machinist, mate first class. Jake Holman is the catalyst who changes the culture of the boat from one of dependence on the Chinese help called coolies to a rude awakening that the shipmates need to depend on each other in Yangtze River in the Yangtze River Patrol. The river patrols ran from 1854 to 1954 to protect the Yangtze treaty that the United States had gotten in with one section of China. In between, 4 stories told, which Hellman is central in telling between ensemble cast. 1. His story of respect and love for a missionary named Shirley Eckhart, portrayed by 19-year-old Candice Bergen. Remember, we was trying to figure out who that was, and then we looked at it. His relations as head, strong subordinate to ship's captain, Lieutenant Collins, portrayed by Richard Crenna. 3. His friendship with star-crossed machinist second class Frenchie, portrayed by Lord Richard Attenborough, whose character falls in love with a bar hostess, Molly, portrayed by Chinese bar hostess, portrayed by Emmanuel Arsan, right? And then the 4th story, his rocky cohabitation on and off the ship with his boatmates who don't like his meddling to the point of possible mutiny on the boat. What's great about it is the battle sequences in the film. The battle sequence in the film is one of the best we've seen. It leaves you on the edge of your seat as you uncover the seat shot from your POV. The closing sequence, when Holman yells, "What the hell happened?" will stay in your mind as real as it would be if it were you, right? So the Sand Pebbles, right? A movie that you must see. So let's break this down. Story, plot, through line 10, ensemble cast 10, believability 10, editing and soundscape 10, acting, emoting 10, character arc 10, the use of Hong Kong as Yeongsong Riverport as a living, breathing character, that's a 10, wardrobe 10, battle sequence 10, the Sand Pebbles starring Steve McQueen is a 10, right?
So this can be seen on what, Turner Classic
Movies, or they can go and rent it, stream it, right? Stream it live, right? So the next movie that we're going to look at is one that was very interesting. It was very interesting indeed. I heard someone say that, Jesse. So let's go. Let's bring this down here. We've got this new look, and I got to get used to the way the microphone is sounded too. It's throwing me off a little bit. It's throwing me off. All right. So the next film that we're going to look at is Fatal Affair. Right? Fatal Affair.
I mean, it was interesting. It was more for a Lifetime channel, I think.
The Netflix, you think?
Yeah.
So,
because it was the storyline, it was just kind of like a traditional have an affair stalker storyline. That's why I say it reminded me of kind of like a
that's interesting because the director is interesting. He's more television than he is feature film.
Okay.
Fatal Affair 2020. Omar Epps, David. as David, Nia Long as Ellie, Stephen Bishop as Marcus, and Aubrey Cleland as Brittany Warren, right? Mm-hmm. And an elite American black family is put into a chaotic situation when the wife lets her freak flag fly with an old fling from college who doesn't take no for an answer. That's the synopsis, right?
Okay.
First, the sequencing of the film is off point, along with the edits. Okay. In obsession films, a certain suspense has to be built through the final script rewrite, the edits. The film should have been shot darker, like an art house film, or The Godfather, for example, that was initially criticized for its low-key look, right? But it went on to make millions of dollars with its low-key look, right? Okay. The film had potential to be truly entertaining. Okay. It stars Omar Epps and Nia Long. Alfie 2004, In Too Deep 1999. Last time we saw him was in Alfie.
Last time we saw who?
Saw Omar Epps and Nia Long were in Alfie.
Acting together.
Yeah, they were in Alfie, right?
Okay.
But it falls short of Fatal Attraction.
Okay.
Back to Fatal 1987 in a minute. Fatal 2020.
Okay.
Directed by Peter Sullivan, who has many co-producer credits behind his name. Lots of TV. Written by Sullivan and Rashida Garner. Did you know that Rashida Garner is a black woman? She co-wrote this piece, right?
Oh, okay.
Fatal 2020 falls into a disjointed attempt to edit uninspired acting into a thriller. Edits by Randy Carter. Okay. So I had to research this. See, a lot of people just say that something is trash, but they really never tell you why it's trash. They just say it's trash, right? But we're going to break it down for you with the research, right? Thrillers are about cinematography angles, right? Which are missing in this film. Cinematographer Eaton Almangor, right? Another ethnic person. Interesting. We can't tell if it's the acting or the angles that makes Fatal 2020 such a potentially good film if both were directed better with skill and knowledge of the obsession genre. See, there's something to knowing the obsession genre. Yeah. Matter of fact, this show could just be called Obsession because each one of these films that we have reviewed, even the Sand Pebbles previous to this one, is about obsession. Oh. There's an obsession there. Even the one missionary that refuses to leave because he thinks he can help the Chinese people, he is obsessed with the Chinese people. The one second mate that you have to watch the film is obsessed with the hostess, the Chinese hostess, right? So each one of these films have obsession within them, and all the things that we're coming up with next, like Nurse Ratched, stay tuned, and the other film, Laura, stay tuned, that's a classic we're going to be talking about, all have obsession, right? Take Fatal 1987. See, we do Fatal 2020 and Fatal 1987. The pacing, the storyline was allowed to develop over time in REEL time, real time, right? Glenn Close portrayed Alex Forrest so good it may have slowed her career. Producers going with Meryl Streep more instead, right?
And for which one?
for any film after
Okay.
that. I'm just saying that
Okay.
her career seemed to have slowed down because it was her and Meryl Streep.
Okay.
And she did this film, and it seemed like just looking at Glenn Close. Her career slowed down. Producers going more with Meryl Streep, right? And thus Meryl Streep's legend has grown, and Glenn Close just is re-emerging, right?
Right.
Or maybe she was a method actor and she couldn't shake that character of Alex.
Yeah.
Could be, and you know, sometimes people need, but we don't know that for sure. But anyway, Michael Douglas, Dan, and Ann Archer, Beth, drawn into Alex's world to the climactic end, right?
Okay.
Now let's take Fatal 2020.
Okay.
You see, what separates Fatal 1987 from Fatal 2020 is the protagonist, which is the husband and wife. And this is what I mean by that. The husband and wife run around in the climactic sequence with no aim, rhyme, or reason, no agency. See, the difference between the films between the husband and wife and Fatal Attraction and the husband and wife and Fatal Affair is agency. The writers did not write the American black couple with agency. They were running around, and at one point people started saying, you know, as the stalker is pursuing them, the viewer keeps saying, "What? What's this? Like, you wouldn't do that." Like, and then at the end, it's never clear, was she in love with the Omar Epps character, or wasn't she?
No, she wasn't. I
because
mean,
when he
it
goes,
was clear in the beginning.
Because when he goes off the side, she says, "Oh," and
well, that was
says,
just because it was a classmate, somebody she knew.
She was holding on.
Well, she didn't want the man to die, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. There was no agency put into the picture, right?
Yeah.
So let's go through this, people. I had to go to a average on this score, right? Story, plot, through line, that's a 2. Casting, it had potential. That was a 10. The casting, all the cast was pretty good, right?
Okay.
Believability, the sex scene, very awkward. That's a 0. Editing, for what he had, that's a 2. Acting, emoting, 0. Character arc, 0.
Okay.
The use of location, 2. Wardrobe, 5. Climactic sequence, 0. So, what would you rate? Well, first of all, did you think that it was a good film? Did it stand up to Fatal Attraction or any other obsession film?
I didn't compare it to Fatal Attraction.
That's what it was supposed to be.
Oh, that's what they said.
I mean, it's fake. See, listen to the word. Fatal Attraction.
No.
Fatal Affair.
No.
Fatal Attraction. Fatal Affair. They was trying to make the syllables kind of go 3 syllables, 2 syllables.
But no.
Right. Because this is supposed to be the Fatal Attraction of the 2020s. Why is everything falling short in the new millennium?
Well, this was more like a Lifetime film. So it was entertaining, right? And the acting was good. You know, you had Omar Epps and Nia Long, you know, so the acting was good, as well as the supporting cast. But the storyline, I don't know, it just felt like it ended quickly. Like there wasn't much substance. And Nia Long's character just that character just didn't have common sense the way the character was written. It just felt like a Lifetime type film, you know. But I don't know, I would give it like what, a 5.
You give it a 5. Okay, I'm the averaging or breaking it down.
Yeah,
I gave it a 2.3.
Okay.
But if you want something just to enjoy, I mean, just something for entertainment, then watch the film, but don't think of it as ever being close to any obsession film that you have ever seen that you enjoyed. I will say that, right? But it had potential. It could have went there, but it didn't go there, and so there we are, right? All right, people. So the next movie that we are reviewing, we're going rapid fire tonight because we've got quite a few films before we get to our topic tonight, right? So let's look. Nurse Ratched. The program is on Netflix. It's called Ratched. 2020 Netflix. Our synopsis here at TFR Podcast Live. A nurse with questionable credentials is hired on at an insane asylum by a doctor who conducts questionable experiments, who's loved by the head nurse, while the staff involves themselves in the lives of the patients in less than professional ways, and that's when the horrific fun begins. Right? This is what a thriller is supposed to be, with enough horror and suspense to be a fan favorite before, during, and after Halloween. Ratched, with its Hitchcockian angles and music, should be a whoever is a fan of horror, suspense, thrillers. This should be your number one pick for sure.
And this is another Ryan Murphy production. So, you know,
right now, Ryan Murphy does FX's
great job. American Horror Story. He did the O.J. Simpson. He did the Fosse. He did with the Hollywood, the one that's on Netflix.
Yeah, Hollywood is good.
I mean, the creator of Glee. He created Glee.
Yeah, but he's great at doing period pieces, though.
Yeah,
they give him the budget to do the period piece, because this is a period piece. This is set back in the 1940s after World War II has ended.
Did we mention Pose?
Oh, he did Pose, too. Right? Yeah, we've reviewed Pose. Unlike its FX brethren or related genre, American Horror Stories, it keeps at bay the gratuitous, murderous depictions to a less explicit nature. Use of sound effects and camera angles just above the action with reverse angles, low angle looking high, tell the story. See the sound effects, and then you will see the aftermath, but you don't necessarily see, like in FX's American Horror Stories, you see it. I mean, it is blatant. It's to the point where, you know, you have to like cut it off and, you know, like wait for a minute. You know what I'm saying? Like, you might even have to pass a week, just see a rerun or something when it plays again, because that's how engrossed it is. The best one that we saw was The Coven, right? Yeah. That was about the
witches.
The witches, and then the voodoo priestesses.
Yeah.
And Angela Bassett was the voodoo priest.
And Gabby Sidibe was in that one.
It was in that one too, right? Yeah. But then the one where we said, well, we're going to just have to let this go, because we went through the Roanoke.
Yeah.
And the Roanoke was like, we were like, okay. Right. But then the one that we said no was the one with Lady Gaga in the hotel. Like, it just went, the first episode was just too much, and it just turned us off.
I think we watched up to like maybe four episodes.
But I had checked out probably around the first one. I said, I'm gonna see if this gets better. But it was like, but this is a totally different situation, where stories relies on the gore, Ratched relies on great storytelling. This is a great story within period piece, right? Cast: Sarah Paulson, Nurse Mildred Ratched, Finn Whitrock, Edmund Towson, Cynthia, I can't read my own right. Cynthia Nixon, Gwendolyn Briggs, John Breons, Dr. Richard Hanover.
Okay. We know Cynthia Nixon from Sex and the City.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then Sarah Paulson from, of course, American Gothic is where we first got to see her in action, right?
And American Horror Story, right? She's on the
right. Yeah, she is a lot of those. Yeah. Judy Davis, Nurse Betsy Bucket, and Sharon Stone. Lenore Osgood. She makes an appearance in the film. A very pivotal character. Yeah, it's a twist in the story, right? Like all good thriller, those who do evil get evil done to them, right? Yeah. It's a must-watch for Halloween, as most will be looking for something to watch because of COVID-19. Right. With all the different shutdowns because of COVID-19, people are going to be wanting to watch a lot of things, right? Story. So what do you think about Ratched?
Ratched is good. Like the coloring, beautiful coloring in the film, costume and design. The architecture, they did a really good job as far as like finding locations that fit that period. And when the film first started, you know, we were saying how it kind of reminded us of like a Alfred Hitchcock type film. And then the location of the hotel and everything, it kind of gave off a Alfred Hitchcock vibe. So, but as we went on with the different episodes and stuff, and you mentioned the different angles, the cinematography, you mentioned how those were like Alfred Hitchcock type, like shootings and angles, and but yeah, they did a beautiful job. It's visually beautiful, like the colors, the backdrop. I mean, just like the city. It's well written. And I love the writing. It's like it keeps you on your toes. I mean, like it's like the conversation between Nurse Ratched and the head nurse.
Betty.
Yeah, they kind of go back and forth, kind of like throw darts at each other, like verbally. It's just well written.
Well written.
Quite entertaining. It's really entertaining.
Okay, so let's break this down, people. Story, plot, through line is a 10. Ratched. Ensemble cast 10. Ratched. Believability. It's very important when you go to period pieces that you get it down to the last, to look at that period, which is in the 40s, and usually it's in black and white, right? And to see it in such vivid colors is amazing. That's a 10. Editing and soundscape, sound effects, music, 10. It puts you in the framework of being Alfred Hitchcockian, but it's still original, right? Acting, emoting is a 10. Character arc is a 10. The use of California as a character, beaches, backdrops, that's a 10. Now let's go back to acting and emoting for a minute, because since American Gothic, Paulson has been good. Yeah. And since Scarface, Sharon Stone has been good, right? Right. So let's see, where are we?
Was she in Scarface?
Yeah, she was the girlfriend. No. She was the blonde. She was the blonde girlfriend.
She was in a casino.
She was.
Yeah.
Who's the blonde? Who's the blonde? Look up the blonde girl in Scarface.
Michelle Pfeiffer.
Michelle Pfeiffer. That's right. That's right. Wardrobe, stage, autos. That's a 10. Death sequences. They come from out of the blue. That's a 10. Ratched is a 10. Right. Yeah. So last year, we discussed the all-time great blaxploitation horror films. We have the link to binge watch episodes 77 through 82 in the description on the YouTube of this particular presentation. You can click right there and you can take it. So make sure you go over to the Film Review Live channel and subscribe. And when you go there after the program, click there and you'll be able to watch our reviews on the greatest blaxploitation horror films all time. That as we go through, you know, as you go through the Halloween season, you can go on ahead and watch some good horror films that you see yourself in, right? Very important. Classics, that's right. I can't believe it's been a year because we dropped that on the 23rd of September.
I'm telling you,
today is the 20th of September. So it is amazing.
Time is flying.
Our next piece that we're reviewing is called Laura, right?
Okay. Another Turner classic.
Turner classic.
Film classic.
Starring Gene Tierney as Laura Hunt.
Right.
Dana Andrews as Detective Lieutenant Mark McPherson.
Right.
Clinton Webb as Waldo Lydecker.
Right.
Vincent Price as Shelby Carpenter.
Right.
And Judith Anderson as Anne Treadwell. Now, there's a lot of supporting cast in it, mostly playing the back, but these are the front five actors that are lead and supporting, and then they have people who come in who are secondary and third area characters that are scenery, and then some that may have one line, which are extras, right? So the synopsis. McPherson Andrews is brought in to solve the murder of Laura Jean Tierney and falls in love with the dead woman through her writings, his investigation, and her portrait on the wall of her apartment, right? Very interesting, you know, it's like what is that when people love the dead? Nephrophilia? Yeah, right. And so it's kind of like a play on that. If you have never seen Laura, this film noir, or film noir, depending on if people want to drop the N or keep the N, I say film noir. It is truly the greatest of the era, with the haunting song Laura, composed by David Raskin, who was under pressure to produce a melody after telling Otto Preminger, the film's director, who wanted to use Duke Ellington's Sophisticated Lady, that he, Raskin, wasn't convinced it was suitable. The Sophisticated Lady. Have you ever heard Sophisticated Lady by Duke Ellington? Have you ever heard it? If you haven't heard it, I would suggest that you go take a listen to it, right? Was that racism?
Well, at least he wasn't trying to use the brown fantasy?
Tan and brown fantasy.
Tan and brown, yeah. So at least he wasn't trying to use that. But you know what?
Starts with a death march before it gets into it. Great song.
But
if
you
ever
know
heard
what?
that.
Like Laura, I've been watching this film ever since I was like a kid. Well, it started off American movie classics actually showed like the classic films, but then when Ted Turner
started buying up all the classic movies,
he started his film channel and bought up all of the classic movies. Then
what's going on, Ed? I see he's watching.
Hey Ed. And that's where we went to watch like the classic films. And so every year, like when Laura or great films, or even like Rebecca, watch them every year. But sometimes to the really great films, like if you're a film lover, you're like watching all of the film channels, right? And Laura is one. It's just well written, right? And then you'll break it down, but just across the board, this is just like a classic. It's a great film. It's better than Gone with the Wind. which is considered like a major classic. But Laura is a really, really great film.
Shoot, Gone with the Wind was so good that it was almost gone with the wind. It was so good at depicting the culture and the society, the culture and the politics of that society at the time, that it was almost gone with the wind.
But Laura is a good film.
So, so as we were saying, David Raskin did not believe that Duke Ellington's Sophisticated Lady. Make sure that you listen to Sophisticated Lady by Duke Ellington, and Brown and Tan Fantasy, or is it Tan and Brown Fantasy by Duke Ellington. Great musicianship all the way through. Was it racism that made Raskin think that it wasn't quote unquote suitable? Well, good. Because Sophisticated Lady stands for the American black woman's elegant style. I couldn't imagine looking at that and then seeing, because I was so disappointed when I used to listen to Brick House by the Commodores, and I was like, yes, it was the Commodores, and I had a picture of what the Brick House looked like, 36, 24, 36. And when I saw the video, because Motown was trying to appeal to a Caucasian audience, who does the Commodores have come out but a belly dancing Caucasian woman? And that just did not fit my vision of 36, 20, 40, 36, or what a lovely
so the measurements didn't match up.
But no, it didn't. But I just didn't picture. But that is what seared in my mind. Like, oh man. So whenever I hear that now, so I'm glad the Sophisticated Lady was not put with Jean Tierney as the Sophisticated Lady, because every time I hear Sophisticated Lady, I close my eyes and I think of American black women, right? So that's good. But so Preminger was angered. Gave Raskin 1 weekend to write a so-called suitable melody. Raskin's wife over the weekend wrote him a Dear John letter. Do you know what a Dear John letter is, people?
He was going through a lot.
Do you know what a Dear John letter is? Tell me what a Dear John letter is.
Well, in the letter, she told her husband goodbye. She told him the marriage was over. And that's that.
That's right. That's usually what happened in war. During the war,
what people do now on social media is they break up with him.
Right. The soldier would be overseas, and then the woman who had been waiting for him to come back
send him a Dear John letter.
Send him a Dear John, it was nice.
The relationship is over.
I feel lonely without you here, and I can't do it. And it's Frederico over here, and Fred.
So he had to deal with writing a song as well as dealing with his wife leaving him.
That's right. And so he said the melody wrote itself once he got that Dear John letter. The song Laura plays throughout the movie, haunting as the emotion of the story brings embodied in the emoting of Dana Andrews as the detective assigned to the case. So as he comes in hard-nosed, but as he goes through investigating the case,
he falls in love, right?
He falls in love with her through the stories that are told by her, through her writings, through his investigation, and then the portrait, right? So it's a sad thing because he's in love with a dead woman. So you have to see this film. We are not giving you any spoilers.
With
if you have never
in it, the thriller.
Yes, if you have never seen Laura, you have to see this film. Jean Tierney and Dana Andrews. You have to see this movie. Always remember, but we'll get to that, the years of cigarette smoking and alcohol drinking on screen, even while on duty for McPherson, A touch not seen except in Ratched, which is a period piece.
Right.
Because, you know, they don't believe in, you know, cigarettes and alcohol necessarily being seen. But they do believe in it being at parties, though.
Right.
Because I remember at the college party I was DJing when they first introduced the alcohol. And we used to be able to have college parties with no alcohol. But anyway, that's another story for another time. The Maid. Bessie Clara.
Okay.
Dorothy Adams portrayed the character. She's Caucasian.
Okay.
Would have been a perfect role for Butterfly McQueen. You know, Butterfly McQueen was an advocate for playing dignified within the roles that she played, right? And even in Gone with the Wind, she refused to actually be slapped as the maid by Scarlett O'Hara, right? Who was played by, I forget her name. What's her name?
Vivian Leigh.
Vivian Leigh. She refused to be actually slapped. They had to work out the camera angle because she said, I am not being slapped because you do not want to see. Anyway, let's continue. The Maid, as written in this piece, Laura, had more humanity than most maids written for American blacks, right? And maybe that's why the role went to a Caucasian and not an American black.
Because normally they would have given the maid to.
Because the humanity in this maid, and she was a servant, right? Of the servant class. She was Irish, most likely, by the name, right? By the character name, but Betsy, I could tell that they had thought of it, but they probably moved past it because it would have brought a certain dignity, kind of like what you see in Hollywood. The show that we reviewed on Netflix. Where they do an alternative look at what Hollywood would have been if it had started more equal footing for American black actors, right? So that role right there would have been pivotal, right? It would have put an end to the stereotypical maid, most famously played by Hattie McDaniels, and brought dignity to the quote-unquote American black domestic. But what makes Laura all-time great? What makes Laura all-time great is the plot. Even with some of the holes, it still tops. The pacing, the acting, except Vincent Price, who gets better as the film lapses, right? It's the wardrobe, the behind the scenes of endorsing products, the benefactor factor, the obsession of the Waldo character masked as arrogance and a lack of caring that the detective has to figure out before it's too late. It's the secondary characters supporting Tyranny and Andrews, the direction of Otto Preminger. See this film like good music and a food recipe passed down from generation to generation. This movie never gets old because it's a classic. Always remember, people, good music, a great recipe, great movies, never get old. They're not old. They're not played out. They are classic. And this is a classic. Laura is a classic. What do you think about Laura? You talked about it, but you know.
Yeah, it's well written. Sometimes, like for instance, like when we're reviewing films, right? Like when we are able to review like a really well written film, I mean, it's exciting because very rare today. Do you find like really, really good films?
Really, really well written.
Right, you know, so Laura is a classic. And like I said, I mean, ever since I was a little girl, whenever this would come on TV, I would watch it. And I love like the storytelling. I love storytelling, right? And that's kind of lacking today. And then that's why I like certain actors and actresses, right? You can kind of bank on the fact that they're going to pick up a script that is a nice, gritty, well-written script, right? Like, for instance, like, you know, like Denzel Washington isn't just going to pick up anything. Like,
right.
you know that just about every film that I've seen him do has, like, grit, right? It's just well-written in this storytelling, right? Same with Joaquin Phoenix, right? Every time we go see one of his films, it's grit. There's a storytelling, right? And certain people you can just like bank on. That's how Chadwick Boseman was, right? We were excited to see any of his work because we knew that whatever the story was going to be about, it was going to be a good story. And so that's what Laura is. Like, it's a timeless film. It's just a lot going on. It's complex. You know, it's like the characters, like the back characters have a story, right? So Laura's just a classic film. It's a great film. It's like up there with, that's what I love about Steel of Magnolias. Both films, both versions. You have the Queen Latifah version, and then you had the Julia Roberts version, right? And both versions of that film I love because it's just great storytelling. And Laura's up there with that. It's just great storytelling.
Great storytelling. Okay, people. So let's break it down. Storyline, plot, through line is a 10. Ensemble cast 10.
Right.
Believability 10. Editing, sound, cover of missed continuity. Okay, editing and sound. In film, sometimes there are continuity problems.
Right.
And the editor was able to cut that by 5 frames back or 5 frames forward. That's a 10. Acting, emoting is a 9. Vincent Price takes it away by 1 point.
Right.
Character art 10.
Right.
The use of locations 10.
Right.
Wardrobe, staging 10. Suspense and twists.
Lots
That's
of
a
twists.
10.
Yeah.
So Laura
and the eerie music.
Yeah.
It's fitting because and since you gave the backstory to the music, it's fitting because what he was going through in his personal life after receiving the Dear John letter and knowing that Otto Preminger was upset with him and knowing that he had to deliver music within a short period of time. I mean, it's fitting.
Tanya Congress says Duke Ellington piece not suitable. Utter foolishness. Had to be racist. Okay.
You know what? Another person too. Can't leave her out. Like everything that we've seen Viola Davis in also has grit, right? So that's what I would. It'd be nice to see Laura well done, but then certain movies you just don't want touched because I don't know. It's just like
they tried to touch Psycho and they should have left it unless they were going to, do something different with it.
Right.
But anyway, so Laura is a 10. Yeah. All right, people. Next up is Succession.
Yes.
It's a 2018 presentation to present. It's 3 seasons, starring Brian Cox as Logan Roy, Kieran.
Yeah, Kieran, which one's brother?
Culkin as Romaine Roy.
Macaulay Culkin's brother. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Sarah Snook as Sheev
Okay.
Roy.
Okay.
Jeremy Strong as Kendall Roy.
Right.
I can't remember. Hiram Bass as Marcy Roy.
Right.
Nicholas Brand as Greg Hirsch.
Okay.
Maddie McFandry as
That's the wife.
No, that's the man, Matthew.
Oh.
And Alex Rook as I was writing fast, Connor Roy.
Okay.
Right? Synopsis: a father who finds it hard to pass the torch, rules his company with a heavy hand, but will health concerns keep him from keeping his company in family hands. That's the synopsis of it, right? I gotta stop writing so fast. That's why I type people. I should type these out.
I would have
Anyway,
looked it up.
What's good about this program is the inner world of the media moguls.
Right.
How deals are made. The cutthroatness even in families where money is at stake. A must-watch episodic that can be binge-watched on HBO and HBO Max.
Okay.
So, what do you think about Succession?
This show right here falls into what I was talking about earlier. I mean, it's just like what I love about this cast is the ensemble. Like each of the characters, right, are not so perfect, right? They're quirky. They're like well written. Like it's just like it's humorous. They have like that little sly wit. You've got multiple storylines going on. I mean, it's it just has that like grit to it. I mean, it's not. It's thinking. It's like cerebral writing. Like it's just like, I mean, the storylines are like taking you in all kinds of directions. It's like, I would say a suspense thriller, but it's not a suspense thriller. But it is some suspenses in it, right?
It is suspense. It's also obsession. And we keep on saying there is obsession. People are obsessing over the company, getting that guap.
Right.
Aikita's Garden. Good afternoon. Good evening, family. Good evening to you. Aikita's Garden sounds familiar. Yeah. As we go on, she said that earlier. Thank you for chiming in on YouTube. Remember, we're on the Film Review Live channel. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel so you will know, and click the bell so you'll know when we go live, right? Don't forget that we go live Monday through Friday with the show TFR Podcast Live OB, hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB. That's observations with myself and my guest host, Tanya M. Congress, my sister, right? So make sure that you tune in. And again, we stream live on Periscope, on Vimeo, Facebook, and the Film Review Live channel on YouTube. We stream live.
And then get your daily dose on observations of
what's going on
in the news. And with Succession, it's well written. Kieran Macaulay Culkin's brother, Kieran McCulkin. His character, you talked about him earlier.
You know, they say his name is Culkin, not McCall. You know, people used to say. So people be saying
Macaulay Culkin.
Macaulay Culkin, right? And they put the MC in front because of Macaulay.
Oh, okay.
But it's Culkin. I was doing that too. I was like McCulkin, but it's actually Culkin. Yeah.
Okay. Kieran Culkin.
Yeah. Go Go ahead.
And Kieran Culkin is
he plays that part.
He kills it, right? So he is like the shiny object in the storyline.
He is.
Like he brings life to his character.
Mm-hmm.
And what I love about all of the characters, they're all complex. Like it's just well written, it's complex, and you yourself, while observing this, you're kind of like trying to read each of the characters, because it's not written where it's just like obvious, oh, this character is da 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 da. You really can't read these characters.
You can't, yeah.
It's just well written. I mean, because it's like you are going for the ride, and you're also trying to figure out, well, which one do you think is going to end up taking over the company, or which one do you think is sincere, or is this? I mean, it's just, yeah, it's a lot. It's quite entertaining. They take you on the ride. It's just well written.
So what would you rate? A
10. Definitely a 10. Because this is something that I can see years from now when they do start having shows like this on a
syndication,
the Turner Classic Network.
Uh-huh.
This show right here, I could see being a classic because it's the way it's written,
mm-hmm.
right? And the characters are so complex.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this is just a really good show. I mean, it's a good show. It's just a good show. It's just well written.
I give it a 10.
I give it a 10 too. If I could give it higher, I would. You know what? The executive producer is Will Ferrell. I forgot to say that.
Will Ferrell.
And then I was surprised because I don't know. When I think of Will Ferrell, well, he does do serious acting also.
Comics are the best.
Actors,
some of the best
dramatic actors, right?
Because they talk their pain in their comedy,
true.
Right?
That's true. And Will Ferrell, he's executive producer of this show, and it's a great show.
Okay, people. So moving on to our next film that we're reviewing before we get to the topic of the night. The topic of the night, which is, what do they call it? They call it blackfishing. In England, they call it blackfishing.
Oh.
The phenomenon of Caucasian women acting like and taking the identity and cultural set of black women. So let's talk about that. Well, first of all, Anatomy of a Murder, 1959. First of all, I'm going to break this down first. I need to break down what the film is and what you're going to see. If you have never seen, this is another film. If you have never seen Anatomy of a Murder, right, you have to see this film. And this breakdown that I write, if I can read my own writing, my chicken scratch, we're going to get through this. Here we go. The movie is a fast-paced masterpiece with twists and turns, plenty of story beats which pay dividends in the film. So out of control could the story be if not for the decency code and the direction of Otto Preminger. Another Otto Preminger film, 1959, the other one 1944, and Laura. We're doing a double Otto Preminger tonight, right? Paul Bigler. This is the main character. Paul Bigler, attorney, written by Wendell Mays, portrayed by Jimmy Stewart, whose calm portrayal gives the illusion, Anatomy is paced mid to slow. His ability to act, his great acting makes you believe that the film is paced mid to slow when really it is moving fast, man. It is a fast-paced film that has a lot of content in it. Yeah. James Stewart, Paul Bigler, Lee Remick as Laura Mannion. Now, remember, another Laura, okay. connecting the dots. Otto Preminger, right? And wait until we get to the biggest connecting the dots. Stay tuned for what we're going to say about this film next. Laura Mannion, portrayed by Lee Remick. Arthur O'Connell as Pornell Emmett McCarthy. Eve Arden as Maida Ruffledge. George C. Scott as Claude Dancer, which is one of the district attorneys. We're going to get there. And Joseph N. Welch as Judge Weaver. Joseph N. Welch as Judge Weaver is very interesting, and we're going to break that down too. Stay tuned for this, because after you hear this, you're going to want to see the film. Ben Gazzara as Lieutenant Mannion, who is the husband of Lee Remick's Laura Mannion, right? The synopsis. Our synopsis here at TFR. Will a country lawyer be able to win acquittal for his client who is on trial for murder, while a big city slicker lawyer from Lansing comes to second chair the prosecution? Big city slicker, right? If you've never seen Anatomy of a Murder, now remember what we told you about Laura and who Otto Preminger's wanted to be the main song, right? What is outstanding about Anatomy is, along with the pacing, is a high-powered soundtrack and high-powered soundtrack and score by who do you think? No, not Quincy Jones. Who did Otto Preminger want for Laura? He wanted the song Duke Ellington. See, it took him a while, but he got it done. But he got it done. Right? From 44 to 59. He got it done. That's the 59. I was thinking right? Quincy Jones. So Duke Ellington, Otto favorite, who makes a cameo in the film. The music accents every scene. There is the drive to the bar, where every note of Ellington's big band sound grooves with a nod to the 60s and 70s funk, but in jazz that would soon be upon us with James and George. Ellington was scoring and nodding the early movement. He was bringing the early movement of the funk. When you listen to what he's doing with his musicians, do no 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 no, do no no, and when you listen to it, you're gonna be like, what? Okay. The scandalous, tawdry nature of the subject matter, wrapped in what appears to be an obsession movie, but turns into one of the greatest court trial movies of all time. Otto Preminger, Duke Ellington, James Stewart, moving the pacing along in this piece that could be so tawdry and if not for those three elements in this film. Want to know how to twist the plot until the climax in a courtroom and close with a scene about human nature? Watch Anatomy of a Murder. What would you rate Anatomy of a Murder? Okay, so I didn't see it. It's been a few years since I saw it, but I do remember
the very first time that I saw it. And this was during the winter. And I remember I was drinking my Theraflu and trying to find a good movie to watch. And I, again, Turner Classic Movies, and this was like in the middle of the afternoon. And I caught it from the beginning to end, and I remember saying, this is a good story. And it was gripping, and like you said, the court scenes, and because I know it's fresh in your mind because you just saw it. But I remember it being a really good film. And because it's been a few years since I saw it, I would definitely give it a 10 because I remember really enjoying the film. And just you reading a synopsis brought it all back to me again. And I would give it a 10 because, like you said, the music, the acting, the storyline, the twist. I love like films like that, like when the lawyer, the attorney is trying to figure it out, and they're trying to put all the pieces together.
Because he's like a detective before he becomes. Because he's a detective trying to figure out, is he going to take the case by putting the pieces all together and trying to lay out the scene of how it happened. Right.
So it is truly an anatomy of a murder.
Yes, exactly. So people, when you watch Anatomy of a Murder, make sure that you look for the scene, the driving scene to the bar. It's where James Cagney's character is trying to decide if he's going to take the case, and he drives, putting the anatomy of the murder together. Otto Preminger, beautifully directed, right? As he's driving, the score from Duke Ellington is playing, and as he's driving, as he parks, as he gets out the car, as he walks along the lane to walk into the bar. I mean, it's everything is beautifully timed. It is a classic piece that is timeless across the board. It's a 10. Across the board, it is a 10. It is a 10. Anatomy of a Murder. You have to see that, right? So you have to see 2 Otto Preminger films, right?
It just happens to be 2 Otto Preminger films.
That's right. And you have to see. You have to see. Okay, people. So for the topic of the night, right? The topic of the night. It's called Black Fishing. Oh, she said, Tanya Conger said, Duke Ellington, sure enough, brought the funk in his big band.
Yep.
The next message she put down, the message was retracted, so I don't know what was said there. So it's called
The Kardashians.
It's called Black Fishing.
I thought you were talking about the Kardashians.
No. Okay. So Black Fishing.
Okay.
The women accused of pretending to be black. This article came out back in 2018, and how did we know that this would be so? Why didn't we know that it would be so prevalent today? Because this article was about women who butt implant.
Now, what year was this again?
This was 2018.
Because I remember that, so it's back again, huh?
It's back again, but only it's been in hiding, right? Okay. And it's 2 phenomena going on. It's one where they're trying to get the body type to get the attention, right? White women passing as black women, American black women in particular. So this article was about black fishing. Came from out of England, right? And of course it did mention the Kardashians. And this woman right here, who is that woman? Is that woman a black woman? Let me bring this closer. Maybe this is just a woman talking about the phenomenon, right? Is this? Let me look close. Let me bring it closer so that you can see. Is this a black woman, or is that?
Well, she could possibly be white, Caucasian, because I remember in 2018 when they gave it a name, the blackfishing, they had the side by side, the woman, the Caucasian woman without her tan versus the tan and having her hair textured, so it can have like a curly pattern. So she could possibly be white, because I saw a lot of before and after pictures back in 2018 when they introduced the blackfishing. Right. So she could possibly be white, because the tanning creams does give a brown complexion. So yeah. Okay. So there has been a phenomenon at university, right? Okay. There has been a phenomenon at university. Okay. This woman right here, white Italian student pretending to be black, resigns from teaching position, being exposed online. Mamma mia, y'all caught me. Right, that's somebody was trying to be funny with that, right? But then you go down to the article some, and then it says graduate student admits lying about being black and resigns from teaching role at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, right? She doesn't go by she, or he, or her. C.V. Vitalo, Haddad, non-binary. She goes by, she calls herself by non-binary titles, they and them. And she says they admit they are Southern Italian and Sicilian. She's a graduate student who teaches at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. What studies department do you think that she? Well, don't comment. That's easy. Don't. That's easy. No, don't comment. What was Rachel Dolezal's? Don't comment. What did she teach? Don't comment. Blackfishing. Okay. Right. That's what that was called in 2018. Right? Okay. But it's a phenomenon. It didn't start with any of these people that we're going to show you right now, right? It didn't start with Rachel Dolezal. No. What I'm getting ready to show you, we're getting to her in a second. It didn't start with any of these women that we're getting ready to show you right now. Okay. Satch. Okay. Cole. This is Satch Cole. This is how she looks all the time. Okay. Does she look black? No, she looks white right there. We had a college person who was black. Okay. Who did have, weren't her eyes blue? Or were they light hazel? But she was mixed, right? Okay. But this woman right here, just my opinion, my observation, she's ugly. I mean, like, I don't know how anyone would believe that she, let me use the right term, were black, right? I don't know how anyone could believe, right? But it never ceases to amaze me how... She said she was light-skinned. It never ceases to amaze me how when the people are so-called passing, right? Okay. They seem to pass in a most, how can I say, degraded or on the low end way. So here we go. So she does an interview because she owns a
food pantry, right? Or she opened up a food pantry. I don't know if you can actually say that people own a food pantry, but they may open up because it's a non-profit, so they would run a food pantry. So this is what she said. So tell me if anyone would. This is her as who she was before she was discovered or unmasked, or however you want to say. Could this be? Could she anyway?
And I remember going to food pantries and having to have all kinds of paperwork and having to prove all kinds of things just to get some generic cereal and some soup, and it just kind of makes you feel less than. And I felt like there were probably going to be some barriers to people being able to eat, considering that we are one of the biggest food deserts in the country. There were just many factors into opening the food pantry.
Now, let me stop right there. Satch, you know, who else was called Satch?
Was Satchel Paige?
Satchel Paige, who else? Satchmo.
Okay.
The first time I think about, that's a good thing. Satchel Paige. I forgot about that. Satchel Paige, right? But Satchmo, that was the first person that came to mind. So her name is Satch, right?
Okay.
And that's what came to mind first.
Okay.
She's guess what kind of activist she is?
A civil rights activist?
Well, you can say that, but what kind? Like, what groups have we been talking about? What group have we been talking about and how they've been co-opted?
Oh, the Black Lives Matter.
Black Lives
Matter. Oh, she's a Black Lives Matter activist. She's a Black
Lives Matter activist in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is the capital of Indiana, right?
The home of the KKK.
The home of the KKK. Sometimes I wonder if the people have been must have been subject to a lot of sundown towns because the American blacks that are there. Because I'm wondering how this woman could just sit in there and pass.
Because I'm watching this and I'm listening to her, and I wouldn't have never thought she was right.
Can't see it.
I would have never thought that.
Let's continue.
And since the day we opened, we have never asked for ID, we have never asked for paperwork, we have never asked for a referral, nothing. The requirements to get food from us are to be human, and that is it.
Okay, wait a minute now, look. She said they don't ask for ID, they don't ask for paperwork. I guess that would be her bylaw or her rule, because she didn't want anyone asking for her papers. Which this is getting into real slippery slope, because we as black people, learning from what they did in South Africa to the South African or the Azanian blacks, would not want to be subject to someone treating us like that or wanting to see the papers. So she's saying that, but no wonder. Okay, so people, here's another one right here. Jessica, I'm gonna pronounce her name Krug, but they pronounce it a Krug or something like that. But anyway, so let's go right here. So this woman right here, got her education from the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
Okay.
See, there's a connection between C.V. Vitolo, her dad, just by, she taught there.
Okay.
She went there, Jessica A. Crew. Something's going wrong in Wisconsin. Like, what's going on with the American blacks there that they don't
know who's who?
They don't. Anyway, so let's listen to this right here. All right, here we go.
Carol Boyce Davies, who is a professor of Africana Studies and English at Cornell University. Carol, thanks so much for joining us. This is an extraordinary story, isn't it? Are you shocked or surprised by this confession of Jessica Krug?
Not shocked as much as sorry for her that she went to such lengths and that she felt that she could not work in the way that she did using her white identity.
Okay. So, Jessica A. Krug, I call it, but they call it Krug, taught at George Washington University. She was an associate professor of what kind of history?
Black studies, Black history, African American history.
Let's continue. And this woman that they're interviewing, she's from Cornell University, and she also has an accent. Can we get to some American blacks being in the highest offices and the highest levels in the land, teaching about American black studies? I'm just wondering. Let's continue.
The problem is that we are pleased
Could she have carried out this work?
Easily. We have many other scholars who do it all the time. And in fact, it's a treat, it's a joy for those of us in the field if you have white allies.
Now look at this woman. Look at this woman. Does this woman look black?
No, the one in the red?
Yes, the one in the red. That's the professor
her?
That's been exposed.
So that's Krigler, okay, because she looks different up here.
Well, that's the same. Looks the same. It looks just the picture
different
was
angles.
Probably was darkened even more. But anyway, what do you think?
No, she looks white.
Does she look black?
No.
It is horrific, son. It is horrific, son. Like, what is going on with these American blacks? Like, they can't tell. We are invaded by the invasion of the American black body snatchers. Everyone comes in and somehow puts on the skin and says, I'm this, I'm that, I'm this or that. People who are immigrants come in, they come in, put on the thing. They're teaching us about ourselves. The Indians from India, they weren't allowed to work in the history department, but they would take jobs in American black history, and you would think they were your ally, but really they were just doing a job.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We have a problem with having a kind heart. Let's continue with this.
Who have done that kind of work and can actually talk with authority about it. So it's not about excluding. I have students who are white and who are working on subjects that have to do with African American, African diaspora studies, and so on. So it's not about excluding. It's about the fact that she claims several identities. It's not just one. She claims that she's Afro-Latina. She claims in some cases that she's from, black communities. So she organized herself as an organizer in the Bronx. She made a lot of different mistakes, and it's a sad.
She did
case.
claim mental.
See there. Now the woman goes on to say that she does claim mental illness, right? She does claim mental illness, doesn't she? She goes. The woman here, the prof, says that she made a lot of mistakes. Is that a mistake? Maybe falling off of a bike would be considered a mistake.
I think, as you and Tanya would say from the show Observations, you guys to say she needs some, is it Fanat?
Speaking of Tanya, let me see right here. Tanya, are you on the line?
Yes, I am on the line. I've been watching and listening to this. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So I'm watching and listening to this, and with the first one that runs the food pantry and says that she doesn't request any ID or anything. Well, if she doesn't, then she's not receiving anything like from Harvest for Hunger or any of the government-run programs that issue food to food pantries. I ran one for 5 years, and you must get ID, social security numbers of everyone in the household, every child, and everything. All of that has to be reported to the food bank. Harvest for Hunger supplies the food banks, and the food bank supplies the pantries. So all of those things are necessary in order to run a food pantry that's going to get government, if you're going to get from your local food, not the food pantry, but your local Harvest for Hunger associated agency in your area, you have to get identification. So that's one thing. So you guys were right. That's her rule because she don't want nobody identifying her. The next thing, this individual, oh Lord, there's that one. You just put a picture, but the one that you put up just before the one you just put up, she is, I don't know how they are not able to tell that she is not white. I don't know if we have an advantage because of the kind of family background we have coming from mixed lineage. I don't know if we have, I don't know. I'm trying to, take the high road because something is wrong. Just like you said, the people of Minnesota, something is wrong. And why is so much coming out of Minnesota and Indiana and those places like that? No, I'm sorry, not Minnesota, Wisconsin. Why is everything coming out of, and those areas are driving distance from one another because we have family that lives in all those areas, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Indiana, and all of that surrounding area. So something is going on in the area where the people can't identify who is black and who's not, and something about people who are passing, even the blacks who are passing for white and whites who are passing for black. I can spot them. They can't get away from the fact that when you look into their eyes and they know that they're faking the funk, and you look into their eyes, they look non-confident, like they're intimidated, because they know they're not who they're posing to be. And if you're a person who's very discerning and you look in the eyes of people when you're talking to them, it's who they are that's looking back at you. Not who they're trying to be. It's who they are that's looking back. But I just wanted to call in and submit that. And this one right here, she's classic, so I'm just going to listen.
All right. Thanks for calling in. Thank you. We will hear you on Monday at 9:30 a.m., 12:30 p.m.
Yeah.
Hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB. See you then.
All right.
All right, people. That's my special co-host on TFR Podcast Live OB.
Yeah.
That's Observations Monday through Friday. You can watch, you can listen to the replays on Apple Podcasts. Just go to Google or Apple Podcasts and search hashtag TFR Podcast Live OB, and all the episodes come out. Also. That's right. So, people, this is going to be the new black family. Dope black dad, dope black son, dope black daughter, dope black mom. Just wearing the t-shirts. Remember how we used to wear t-shirts and now it's a black thing and you ain't got to understand? Well, guess what, people? They said that's right. It's a dope black dad. If you American black, you don't have to understand. It all kicked off, well, it probably kicked off before, but it really kicked off with this one right here. What's her name? Rachel Dolezal.
Some people might think that it actually, I've heard people.
Now, how she got in the news was she was in Spokane, Washington. What's going on with the American blacks in Washington State that can't tell an American black? She was the NAACP president of the Spokane, Washington chapter, and she had been getting so-called death threats and stuff mailed to her in the mail. And this was initially what this interview was about until the interviewer got down to the nitty-gritty. Let's listen.
We'll say something about, oh, well, you get publicity from these hate crimes. And I think that's very sick as well, because that's not the kind of publicity anybody wants, is publicity.
Now it comes to the question, did she really want publicity or didn't she? And can anyone believe that this is an American black woman?
No.
Okay, here we go.
Of a negative and terrorizing scenario, especially death threats and photos of lynchings. And as a Black Studies professor, I know what these images mean and take them very seriously given the history of racism in the United States.
Speaking of that, did your dad ever make it to Spokane in January for the ribbon cutting?
No.
Did you see her eyes? That was kind of like what my sister had said just a few minutes ago. That you look in their eyes and their confidence shakes. She said, did your dad ever make it? Her eyes, she kept a smile, but her eyes went back and forth, left to right, like, oh my God, what's this about? What's this question about my dad about?
Actually, he has, unfortunately, has bone cancer and was not able to get cleared for surgery, and so.
God, that sounds like a terrible break for you. I'm sure that he would have been very proud of you. Is that your dad?
Yeah, that's my dad.
This man right here is your father? Right there?
You have a question about that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I was wondering if your dad really is.
She's getting ready to fold like a folding chair. Like, how long has she been claiming that she was an American black person? Working and braiding people's hair and doing all that, but she's getting ready to fold like a folding chair. Do you remember this, people? 2015. It was amazing. It was like, what?
Is an African American man.
That's a very. I mean, I don't know what you're implying.
Are you African American?
I don't understand the question of
She doesn't understand the question. Are you African American?
She doesn't understand.
Did tell you that yes, that's my dad, and he was unable to come in January.
Are your parents? Are they white?
She bounced.
Okay, she bounced, and the reporter was like, "Hey, look at this! Look, hey, get back over here! I've got to break this story. What is going on here? What is going on here?" Now, people, real quick. I was researching this, and the funniest things were happening, right?
Right.
The funniest things were happening as I was researching this.
Let's read. Is it Akada's Garden? She said, "Did you see the left eye wink?"
Then she says, Then she says, "Still, kill, destroy."
Did you see that left eye wink?
So look. The funniest thing happened. Every time I was searching white women passing for American black, this ad by Kamala Harris kept going on every video, and I'm like, what? So then I had to go search it as an ad, as a video on YouTube and grab it, because every ad
she kept coming up.
She kept coming up as, now, arguably, coming from mixed lineage, I can look at this woman and tell that she is not black. She's not American black. She may be black from Jamaica, but even her pops is from a certain class of Jamaican black, and her mother is Indian. Her values are more Indian, from India. I can look at this woman and tell that she is not black. I can look at her nose. That nose is horrible. The lips, the cheekbones, the forehead, the thick neck. That's damn near that actress. What was that actress from Gaslight? What was her name? Ingrid Bergman, right? Yeah. This almost have you ever seen, the only thing that threw Ingrid Bergman off was this big, thick neck that she had. It was something that just couldn't. But anyway, listen to what these are just our thoughts on this, all right? So listen to this real quick.
So I think we need to ask ourselves, why don't they want us to vote?
Okay, who is us? Because Biden's plans are about immigrants, illegal immigrants, and quote-unquote minorities. Who are they? Between this... Where's my finger? Where's my fingers going? Down, between this and that. I mean, I don't know what's really good, what's going on. What is she talking about? Who is she talking about? Who is she talking about? Let's continue.
Why is there so much effort to silence our voices? And
who is our voices? Right? Now, listen to what she says next, because this is very important. This is propaganda. Are you ready?
And the answer is because when we vote, things change. When we vote, things get better.
We voted for Barack twice.
Okay.
Did your conditions get better? Are you under a fictitious mind state that it got better under him or got better under Clinton or it got better? Did you not notice who goes to prison, who's being harassed, who's all this? Like, did it get better? Did it get better?
Well, Obama did have that beer summit with the police officer on race. We were dealing with race relations.
Is that all?
Obama did have a beer summit.
So people, we don't have any answers. We don't have any answers. You have to figure this out. November 3rd. We're out of here. Another great jam-packed episode of the Film Review, Movies, Music, Culture, Politics, Society podcast. And we'll see you next Sunday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific.
Film Review, Movies, Music, Culture, Politics, Society podcast. Interviews, movie reviews, and more. Live Sundays at 5:30 p.m. on the Film Review Live channel. Subscribe.
Hi, this is Bernadette Stannis, Thelma from Good Times, and you're watching the Film Review.